All right, guys, welcome back. Episode 29.
29.
This is a extremely special episode for us because we are going international, right? We're going international via our content. As we said before, a lot of people, always ask us for stuff outside of America. So we thought this would be a good idea. And we're going to touch Mother Africa, the continent.
Yeah, we got a large fan base out there.
Yeah, for sure. So before I start, I want to shout out all of our international listeners. We are trending on the top charts in a lot of different countries. Canada, South Africa, Mozambique, Nigeria, Kenya, Ghana, Tanzania, Grenada, Barbados, Botswana, Jamaica, UK, DR, the Netherlands, and Trinidad.
Yeah. You say Tanzania? You said Tanzania, right?
I think I said Tanzania.
Shout out to them.
So, shout out to you guys, man. That we really appreciate you, coming from America, coming from New York. Who knew that somebody in South Africa would be interested in our conversation? But once again, that just goes to show you the power of the internet. And
Great Britain, too.
Oh, yeah, Great Britain. Well, we're going to do something in London.
Yeah, a lot of people from London always asking us when we come in.
Toronto and London are our two biggest international markets. So, that's special. But we know everybody else. And it's all a melting pot too. Most people from our listeners probably in Toronto and UK, they're immigrants in some level. Their parents, they come from Africa, they come from Jamaica, they come from the islands. So it's all a melting pot. It all mixes together.
For sure.
So we have a very familiar guest. If you listen to the podcast, because he was the guest on the last podcast, he's pitching a double hitter for us. Fritz Charles, so welcome back.
Thanks for having me again. Thanks for the t-shirt.
Yes, we did a wardrobe change.
The story was too long. We had to make sure you get 2 episodes.
Yes. All right, so we're going to talk about Africa, right? We're going to talk about a lot of different things in Africa. But first, we're going to talk about something that started in America but reached over to Africa, which is basketball, right? Sure. Basketball is a global sport. If anybody's not familiar, I played basketball my whole life. That was my original plan, was going to the NBA.
As most young people in our community.
Yeah, that's right. So now my son has to live up to that. There's a lot of pressure on him. But the NBA is strategically spreading its wings across the globe, right? Mm-hmm. If you know anything about sports, soccer is the most dominant sport in the world. Football.
To the most
Yes, exactly. American football is what they call our football.
Yeah.
That's the most popular sport in almost every country in the world. But basketball is catching up. It's close, probably second in a majority of countries. Mm-hmm. It's huge in Asia. I think it's like the number 1 sport in China. And it is the number 2 sport in Africa, right behind soccer or football. So the NBA decided that they're going to open a branch in Africa.
Yeah.
I actually wrote about this on Instagram, but it's going to be NBA Africa.
Yeah.
I think, right?
9 different countries are going to be participating. And it just shows the spread of the game. And I think it goes back to, we can pinpoint it back to like the original Dream Team in 1992. Hopefully our listeners can remember back that far. It seems crazy to us, but 1992 when the Dream Team played Angola and they won by like 70-something points. But it was the fact that you had people from a country in Africa competing with Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, and all those greats. And then fast forward, right? Like a guy like Joel Embiid, who's now an NBA superstar, and guys like Serge Ibaka and Siakam come from countries in Africa. You could contribute that to that game,
of course,
and it's similar to like how, like Rashad was saying, like China is number 2 sport there, right? Or close, maybe number 1, but like the impact that a guy like Yao Ming has had,
of course,
right? So like you see now when NBA players, especially those who have marketing deals, they do the season, right, and the first stop that they have on the off season, they do a tour of China.
Exactly right.
Right, and then you got companies like Li Ning and all these other companies signing guys because they know the global spread of it. Right, like that's our export. Like whereas sports like baseball, it's played in China, but not played in other countries. Right. Like, and same thing with American football. They tried it in London, botched.
Yeah, basketball is the only international American sport.
Exactly,
that's a fact. So you used to work for NBA League Pass, right?
That's right. Yeah,
and then so you were a part of the African launch of the NBA League Pass, right?
Yeah.
So can you talk about that?
Sure. So
I pay y'all every year, man.
So NBA League Pass, for those who don't know, is like the Netflix for basketball. So obviously you can watch, if you live in New York, well, let's say you live in Chicago, you basically, if your local television station is only going to show you the Bulls, right? And then maybe you could watch maybe a national televised game that has some other teams. But let's say you live in Chicago and you are a Rockets fan and you want to watch every game, you have to subscribe to NBA League Pass. And so that's how it works in the U.S. But if people that are NBA fans internationally, they're not going to get as many games on their local television, or they may not even. People can't record.
Yeah. That's what I'm thinking. Like, TV, right? What national game would they get?
Yeah, exactly. So now you can watch all the games on your app, or your Apple TV, or your Roku, or your PlayStation. So I was on the team that was responsible for growing the digital league pass outside the U.S. And Africa was a major focus for us, and it was a growth area. From a monetary standpoint, China, Australia, Canada, UK were the I guess the places that most of the revenue came from. But for the what they saw the future growth from was Africa.
Yeah.
For two reasons, not only from customer consumption standpoint, but from a talent standpoint too.
Yeah, I remember. I'm a huge Bulls fan, so I remember Luol Deng.
Right.
And he's doing some amazing things in Africa.
Right.
But like,
funny enough, he's doing stuff with Nipsey's partner.
Gross. David Gross.
Yeah.
Shout out to David Gross. We gotta get him on the podcast. So what was the plan? Do you know like the NBA's plan to? Because obviously this was planned out.
Sure.
What was their plan to move into Africa, like strategically?
So there's always been relationships. You mentioned the Angola game, but there's been NBA players from Africa since the 80s, right? So you had Hakeem, who changed his name to Hakeem Olajuwon. You had Manute Bol.
Shout out to him. His son just got drafted.
Exactly. Then you had
Hakeem Olajuwon changed his name?
Yeah. It was Hakeem.
There was no
Hakeem.
H prior to him coming to America.
Right.
When he went to Houston, they put the H on it.
Right. I'm not even sure what the
Shout out to the H-Town.
Yeah, that's right. And then you had Dikembe Mutombo, who followed Patrick Ewing and Manute Bol, we mentioned.
Yeah.
Yep.
The Kembe has some direct ties into getting the league into Africa.
Right. So, those old players always had philanthropic relationships with the league, right? So like doing like, nonprofit stuff. But in that, what happened was the league would go there and like, wow, like, you're from this tribe, and everybody in this tribe is 6'9" and 7'. Like, we can do something here. And obviously, you have the visual, the league being the blackest league, right? There's some visual connections there, and so they had to realize. And then I think they learned a lot from the other leagues, right? For instance, the investment that the MLB, Major League Baseball, does in Dominican Republic, does in Venezuela, does in some of these other countries where there's a bunch of talent, is on another level. So they were like, hey, we could do this. We can make this whole continent our farm system.
They're trying to do that now. That's funny you said that. Major League Baseball. They just had the Yankees and the Red Sox play in London. And everybody was like, we don't even care about baseball. Right. It's like, it's soccer or it's cricket.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So like, that's true. Like, they're trying to spread it too. And I think maybe this is true or not, but because of the population of Africa, like, we know that majority of the population is under like 25.
Exactly right.
So there's a huge growth curve for potential athletes and business people, right?
Exactly right.
So a lot of people ask the question, I wasn't really 100% sure. The teams, I don't know if you know or not, but the teams, like the 9 teams, who's going to be the owners of those teams? Do you know? Like, is it people in Africa or? Yeah,
so this actually, I left the league prior to this being announced. I don't know 100% sure the full structure, but what I remember it being is a combination, like a co-ownership between the league and local partners.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Because, how do you feel personally, just your personal opinion about that? Do you feel like Africa would have been better to have their own league? Because Europe has their own leagues. Like, people go from America all the time, and Africa does have leagues.
Yeah, and Nigeria specifically.
It's not on the same level of Europe. So, but like the Euro League is very strong. Do you feel like they could have done better at just forming a league together themselves, or do you feel like the NBA is a good partnership for them?
The NBA is a good partnership. Like you said, there are already leagues. They just haven't really taken off to the same level. And also, there's an issue in Africa, not only from a sports perspective, but from a business perspective, where there's not too much country trade, right? And so I think it would have been difficult for like a league to be cross-continental and to have different things and all the ownerships being like inclusive in those specific countries.
Yes.
I think the NBA being an outside force, for better or for worse, an American Western sport force, and tying it together makes it a lot better.
Yeah, people got to visualize that, right? Because this isn't like you're going from New York to Florida. You're going from country to country. So like when they have a Spanish league, if they're all in that country of Spain,
Exactly,
what Africa's trying to do here is like literally you're going to 9 different countries.
And even, the European leagues, just like the soccer leagues, you have you like in soccer, you have Barcelona playing against Bayern or Real Madrid, or Manchester United. Like traveling between those countries, like those countries are really compact. Like traveling between those countries is not really a big deal, and they have the funds to do that. Like you can't take a train from Lagos to Accra or Lagos to Johannesburg. Like it's not the same, right? So I think the level of investment that you would need and the organization you would need, the NBA could work that out.
Yeah, so that makes it a good partnership.
And I think the African Union actually did. They just announced that they're going to eliminate tariffs on intercontinental trading. We wrote about that on Instagram as well. I think it's like 40 countries involved. And I think that's going to start next year, where tariffs will be eliminated for the majority of the continent. So they're actually going to, hopefully, they're going to start doing more. Because you said, it's not a lot of that going on right now, but hopefully that's a step in the right direction where they can actually start to trade in between the continent with each other. So, all right. So now we got the league covered, but we're going to go into some more interesting things on the continent in the next segment. All right. So now we're going to talk about content, right? Because content is king. We've covered content on America, but we haven't covered content internationally. So iROKO.
Yep.
Can you explain that?
Yeah. So iROKO is iROKOtv is the website. It's a startup that was created in 2011. I worked there from 2012 through almost 2015. And so what it is basically the Netflix of Africa. And the question is, why do you need a Netflix of Africa? It's because the third biggest movie market in the world is actually out of Nigeria. So number 1 is Hollywood. Number 2 is Bollywood. Number 3 is Nollywood.
That's a new word. I never heard it. Nollywood.
It's huge. It actually, one of the years I worked there, it actually grossed about 800 million USD in that place. And it's a tremendous market. It's interesting, at least from my perspective. I might have consumed too much Western content. It's not really my thing, but the movies are being produced for like less than $10,000.
Wow.
And in like 2 weeks. High volume.
Wow.
As you can imagine, because the movies are not the highest priced and the biggest budget, you're not really seeing action movies. These are like romantic movies, comedy movies where you don't need special effects. But basically the way it worked is the gentleman I work for, he's a Nigerian Brit. So he lives in London, traveled to Nigeria often to see family, whatever. And at the time, all of the content was in DVDs. So what his mom would do is go from London to Lagos, spend maybe Christmas time or whatever with their family, come back with a suitcase full of DVDs. He was like, well, why can't my mom consume the content the same way I do on Netflix? And so that's how the idea started. So moved back to Nigeria, took the DVD content, digitized it, also built relationships with some of the movie producers. To them, they were like, because Netflix wasn't even a big thing out there at the time. They were like, you want to pay me for my digital rights? And to them, they're like, I don't really know what digital rights means, but like, if you want to give me some money, it's whatever. So he got some exclusive pretty cheaply, and basically took that piece of content, initially put it on YouTube. It started blowing up, and because people that emigrated outside of Africa that lived in the U.S., UK, they were now able to see the latest movies without having to wait for people to send the DVDs back. And then he eventually actually raised money from a U.S. venture capitalist. So that firm was actually probably one of the first 2 Africa-based tech firms to get U.S. venture capital in 2011. And I joined them and opened up their New York office because their biggest audience, even though they had African content, were Africans in the U.S. And then it kind of grew from there.
Wow. So Netflix itself, right? You said it's the Netflix of Africa. It doesn't exist on all continents, right? And that's one of the things they said, that it probably potentially has some great growth. And we documented, some of its setbacks as well. But what is like the price point on a Roku TV type situation?
The latest price it depends on the country. But the latest price is actually similar to Netflix. So they have a $9.99 plan. There's one that's around $6.99. But it's actually priced in at least in Nigeria, naira, and it's very volatile. It depends on the USD exchange rate.
Okay.
But the company's since expanded. So since I worked there, they've done a lot of production. So they're actually making movies.
So they're making now their own original content?
So, and actually they as of 2 weeks ago, they actually ended up selling that production house to a French media conglomerate called Canal Plus. So Canal Canal Plus.
Wow.
How many countries are there in?
So the iROKO content is global. It's everywhere. So there, when I was there, and even now, there's customers in over 200 countries in the world, because the African diaspora is everywhere.
And this was started by African,
African and a German. So basically, they went. So the German person and a African person went to school in Manchester. They met. The African person came out with the idea, and he co-founded it with the German individual, and they both moved full-time to Lagos and built it out. Ended up opening an office in New York and London to help distribute the content.
Something else was recently started with a German and an African, right? That went public.
It's Jumia.
Yeah.
So
that's like the Alibaba of Africa?
Exactly. So there's this company called Rocket Internet, started by German brothers. And what they do is they actually build companies that are successful in the first world. So Amazon, Groupon, all that kind of stuff. And they build it in like emerging markets where those companies are not there yet. And so what they did was they looked at Alibaba / Amazon, and they decided to build it in Africa, and they called it Jumia. And so they're in Nigeria, they're in Kenya, and there's some other countries as well. And so yes, there. It's interesting. There is like I guess a few people of German descent that build tech companies in Africa.
So they're literally watching the world as it's happening and saying, all right, let's go to a part of the world where it's not happening and let's build it there.
Exactly.
From a kid from Queens, man. Like your journey has been out of this world. Like, did you ever envision like your studies would ever take you like?
No, definitely not, man. Just kind of like working in, went to school. I knew I wanted to do business. Didn't know what that really meant because I didn't really have business people in my my family or even around me.
Haitian, right?
I'm Haitian.
Shout out to the Haitian Massive.
Yeah, man. Haitian thing is like, hey, mom's a nurse. You're going to be a doctor. Or if you don't want to be a doctor, be a lawyer. If you're not going to be a lawyer, be an engineer. And so this business thing it was something different. And study business, was fortunate to be part of an internship program called Inroads in college. That introduced me to Wall Street, fell in love with Wall Street. Financial crisis happened, fell out of love with Wall Street, went to school and kind of discovered tech and the world and how it was used around the world. That's kind of how I ended up working at that company.
So we talk about music because I know you had mentioned on the musical content.
Yeah,
it's hot right now as far as Afro Beats. It's a bunch of artists out there. Wizkid,
Burna Boy.
Burna Boy. He just put out his album.
Yeah. Somebody else has a song on the radio they keep playing all the time. That Joanna song.
Joanna is like
who sings that?
Forget the name, the title. God. All I know is that it follows me every time I get in the car. It's like it knows I'm it's on.
He's burning up right now. I think he got a song with Casanova too. But can you talk about that?
Davido.
Yes, that's it.
Shout out to.
So we back then this is 2012, 2013, and so obviously being in the movie space in Nigeria, there was a close proximity to the musical space, and so the CEO came up with the idea like, all right, let's come up with a company called iROKOtv, which is basically like Spotify for Africa, where we take that content, and so a lot of these people you talk about. We were the first ones to digitize that content even back then, and it was too early. It was too early. I mean, the company was out there, and the music wasn't as popular yet here. And then obviously, probably after they decided to wrap it up and focus only on movies 100%. Like that's when like Wizkid was doing songs with Drake.
Yeah,
and it was just an early thing. And if they were to kept it up. like that company would have been something different because that Afrobeat is the thing, right?
Right now, for sure.
Yeah. So and it's crazy. I mean, because of the internet, music and content and just culture is so there's no borders.
Yeah, Afrobeats feels like reggae to me.
It does.
It's a vibe. It's a whole vibe like that. It's a similar type of vibe.
I think so. I think we're all in a similar age group, like mid-30s, whatever. Growing up in the New York City area, like you couldn't go to like a party in the late '90s and early 2000s without hearing, dancehall. Sean Paul had his time where he was doing songs with everybody. Then like I think it was a big era of like reggaeton.
Reggaeton did have a moment.
And now I think Afrobeat is it. Right?
Yeah,
so I think everybody, there's always like this like African diaspora music that's taking over.
For sure.
I think Afrobeat's having this thing right now.
Well, all of the music, I mean, it has roots in Africa.
Of course.
As far as the drums.
Of course.
And, all of that stuff. So, it's not surprising that it's popular because it's always been popular, just not, it wasn't framed in that way, right? Like you said, it sounds like reggae, but really, probably the reggae comes from that originally. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
so even like jazz and
it's fluid, man, because people out there love reggae. People out there love even Haitian music. Wyclef is huge over there in Africa. Like I go, like
that's Wyclef Jean. They might be young.
Yeah, no, exactly. My my in-laws are from Nairobi. I go over there and like. I go and I listen to. I'll be at a restaurant and then the server would have a Jamaican wristband. I'm like, "Oh, you been to Jamaica?" Like, I've been. I'm Haitian, but I'm from Queens, so like I've always been around Jamaicans. I've been to Jamaica many times, and so I was like, "Oh, where you from in Jamaica? Like, what are you doing here in Nairobi?" And they're like, "Nah, I've never been to Jamaica. I just love reggae,
culture. Shout out to the culture.
Yeah. The culture is huge, right? And so it's kind of gone back. So definitely, I do believe, although reggae has African roots, I think the Afro Beats learn from reggae too.
Yeah, for sure. And even it's all cross because even if you go to Jamaica, you see a lot of flags from Ethiopia. You see a lot of Ethiopian flags. Shout out to the Rastas out there. Yes. So it's all connected for sure. So let me ask you this: as far as the music scene, because we know the music is blowing up, do they have record labels in Africa, or are those artists being signed to like American labels?
So they have record labels, but most of the people that you see successful here they have affiliations with U.S. record labels.
Yes.
And that's what's helped quite a bit. But at the time, it wasn't like that. But actually, the individual that ran that division at the company I was at, he left and went to Sony Music. So like at that time, they realized that it was heating up, and they started putting people on the ground to kind of pull that talent in and be that in between. So for the most part, the people that you see now and having success, they're backed by U.S. powerhouses.
So even then, like even at that venture in iROKO, your job was to do the analytics, right?
Yeah.
So what type of things are you looking for? Like,
Sure. So it was a lot of things. So the analytics were mainly analytics that you would see on any digital platform. So I was responsible with looking at the website, seeing where people were coming from, and use that information to figure out what the best marketing campaigns were. Like you would see if people came from Google, people came from an email, people came from Facebook. I would look at also what people are doing on the website to see whether we should do things to the website that would make the navigation a lot easier. Mm-hmm. And then from a content perspective, the cool thing about digital content, you could put numbers behind the amount of people that were playing a certain piece of content. And then I could go to the content team and they're like, all right, drama movies are on average played 25% more on our website. Therefore, drama movies are more valuable. So they would use that information to go to the negotiation table to decide what content to renew, what to buy, and etc.
No, that's powerful.
Another numbers guy.
Yeah. So, all right. So in the next segment, we're going to talk about a few other things. And the question that everybody asks anytime that we post anything about Africa is China behind it? China's influence. So we're going to talk about China's influence in Africa a little bit. And we're going to talk about some other things as well. So be right back with that. All right. So one of the things that everybody always comments on anytime we post anything about Africa is like, well, China's behind it.
I know they're doing
China's involvement. So anybody not familiar, China, and it's not just Africa, it's all over the world, right? Jamaica
Shout out to the
heavy
country.
influence. China has a heavy influence in Jamaica, and they also have a heavy influence in Africa.
A lot of countries in Africa.
The continent, they really have a
China's been involved in Jamaica for a long time. Like
Yeah.
the
for
Jamaican
sure.
billionaire Mike Lee Chin.
Yeah, he's half Chinese. Yeah.
Chinese.
It bugged me out. The first time I saw somebody that was Chinese, but they was talking in Jamaican accent.
Right.
Patois.
And I'm like,
Patois.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
but Indians, a lot of people in Jamaica. It's a very diverse country.
Yeah, I
Right,
mean,
very much so.
my grandparents are Jewish.
Right.
You know what I mean? So like when I heard somebody was Jewish,
Both of your grandparents?
my grandfather. So when you see them on TV talk, like my mom's last maiden name is Twari, which is a Jewish diamond company in Jamaica.
Wow.
So like when I saw it on TV, it's like bugs me out. I'm like, wait, they don't look like us. They sound just like us though.
Right,
You know what I'm saying? It's weird.
China, obviously, since they kind of, they're still communist, kind of, but over the last 3 or 4 decades, they've embraced capitalism, and it's been with the aggression. The level of wealth that's being created there is immense. The level of trade is immense, and with that, they want to be a world player, right? And to be a world player, you have to, put stakes in other places, and they see Africa as a place that's been ignored by the Europeans, the U.S., etc. And there's a lot of opportunity, and the way they're doing it is by using financial capital as well as human capital, right? So what there's a lack of infrastructure across the continent. So what they're doing, they're going to countries and they're saying, hey, we'll build a new highway for you, we'll build a new bridge for you, we'll build a new factory for you. But after we build it, maybe we have to have exclusive rights to it. Maybe we need to do X, Y, and Z. And so in doing that, they're just building everything. They're having the opportunity to kind of state their claim, and so they're going into it, at least from the onset, of as if they're helping, which there's a level of it, but the way they're doing it, a lot of people don't agree with, right? Because what they do is they're not hiring local people, right? They bring their own people to build everything
From China?
Yeah,
Cheaper labor.
yeah, cheaper labor. There's even people. I don't know if this is true or not, but there are people saying that they're taking prisoners from China and using them as like labor in Africa.
Yeah,
that's I don't know the truth there. That's just
there's a whole story on it on HBO Sports. They covered it. It was like pretty in detail. That was one of the rumors that they covered. So
right, and I think I don't want to like feed into like the whole Africa and nepotism and corruption story, but there's a lot of that there. And so what they're doing is they're like, sometimes they're greasing the pockets of certain politicians, and then politicians are signing things off, and that's it. So then you have a road, you have a bridge, you have a something like that, just a railroad built by Chinese,
a hospital,
right. And then then after that they have ownership, or they could have ownership. What they might do is they may do something where they build it, they offer the financing, and they do it at like maybe a usurious interest rate to the point where the country can't pay it, and then they're stuck with it. So there's a story in Kenya that I could go into if you want.
Yeah, you were going.
Yeah. So Kenya recently, there's a port that is in their Mombasa, which is a huge port city in Kenya, where it was a port that was rebuilt, a shipping port that was rebuilt by the Chinese, and as part of the deal. Somehow they built it, but they lent Kenyans money to pay them for building it, and then Kenyans could not keep up with the interest rates, and they took the port over. But what was said is it's temporary, but things are not always not temporary.
That's what they did in Jamaica too.
Right.
So they built the airplane. They bailed the airport out, like the second largest airport in Jamaica, and it's like on a 20-year lease. Like they own it for 20 years, but then they can buy it back at the 20-year mark. But it's probably something.
It's gonna be tough.
Yeah, it's gonna be tough for them to buy it back.
Yeah.
So they probably just own the airport now.
Right. But in their defense, Africa has been the victim of like usurious financial transactions for a long time, because most of Africa got independent in like the 60s into the 70s. There have been multiple dictatorships and all type of stuff. And when they got independent, these European powers that were involved just pulled out, didn't care. They left the countries in bad shape. And the World Bank, IMF, came in, and a lot of those loans were with caveats that were not great for the countries. And so China's doing this, kind of just stepping in that role a little bit. And to the country, they're like, at least these people are building us stuff. So like, there's positives and negatives to it.
Like all things in life. Yeah. So, and then also, like you said, I mean, it's the politicians are the ones that actually have to sign off on it. They're not putting a gun to anybody's head and taking the land over. So ultimately, if they are taking over Africa, it's the politicians' fault.
Right.
You can't, I mean, you know, they're going to do what's best for their country. Like any country would do. America's done that for generations.
Right.
Every country would do that. But it's up to the country to say, no, all money's not good money.
Right. You got, that country has to think long term, and leaders have to think long term, and that's not always the case. And another reason why they love Africa is because they've been building so much in China. They need materials for that, and there's materials in Africa.
Every material in Africa.
So,
it is the land of natural resources.
You know, you can't do. They realize you can't do what they did in the 1800s, 1900s.
Just
come in with guns and whatever. Like, all right, let me do a deal with you. I'm gonna go and build this school, build this hospital, give you buses, do whatever. And by the way, like that mining over there, like yo, like I see.
Can we get in?
I see Belgians doing some stuff there. I see some British. Like, why don't you just like let us hold that ourselves, because we're really your friend. So yeah, you know, they're definitely being strategic about it.
Yeah, it's a gold continent for a reason. You know what I mean? So in terms of like Americans of African descent, what do you think long term as far as investments in the continent?
Yeah, I think it's very, very important for us to be involved. I think there's a lot of opportunity. Like we said on the side earlier, I think over 50% of the population in Africa is under the age of 25. I believe that's a stat. That Africa is one of the, Africa and Asia are the only two continents where the population is growing. Like the U.S., Europe, Japan, like these are places where people are having less and less children, so there's less and less people. Whereas in Africa, it's growing, so therefore, obviously, you have more talent and also more consumption. Obviously, this is a place where people of African descent, wherever they are, it's more of an asset, looked upon as an asset. Like it's not as easy for us to just drop in Belgium or drop in Malaysia and just open up a business. But like, I'm not saying it's easy in Nigeria or Botswana, but it's easier, right? I think it's just important. Like, you know, we come from that continent originally. Everybody has a different story about how they ended up here, right? And it would be, I think it's very important for us to like take part in its resurgence.
Now, for sure. I seen Akon. He said that he encouraged all Americans, Black Americans specifically, to go back to Africa and take your talent, like whatever talent you have, whether it be real estate, whether it be manufacturing, construction, music, whatever, and establish business there. Because he was like, you know, it's still a learning curve where it's still learning, and we might have the expertise to help out.
Right.
And like you say, even if you've never been, it's still a connection on a certain level. It's got to be a connection for sure. So
there was I was speaking to a gentleman in Atlanta stop, and he does work in Africa, and he was telling me something. This might be true or not. If you can prove like through like your ancestry.com or something like that, if there's any ties to a country in Africa, like you can get dual citizenship within like 6 months. Is that true or not?
I think Ghana was offering African Americans, I think they still are, citizenship.
Okay.
It was like part of a campaign, come home campaign that they was running. I'm pretty sure Ghana was doing that. I'm not familiar with any other country, but I know Ghana specifically was offering that, and I think they still are offering that. So shout out to Ghana for sure.
Sure. We got to go back. Like we said that on...
We got to go. Period.
No, not go back. I'm sorry. We got to go. Yeah, we got to go. We got to do something out there.
Yeah, that's new wave. I saw on IG New Year's, like a lot of celebrities, a lot of people going to Accra to celebrate New Year's. So
yeah, I hear Emmy talking about that all the time. He spends like the last 2 weeks of the year in South Africa.
Right. Yeah. South Africa is beautiful.
Yeah, I want to go out to Africa, period. You know, there's so many different places in Africa. So yeah, we definitely got to touch it. Can we talk about the M-Pesos?
M-Pesa, yeah.
M-Pesa.
Yeah, so M-Pesa is, M stands for mobile, is a little short for mobile. Pesa is money in Swahili, and basically it's mobile money. And so, you know, obviously people use mobile money all over the globe. In the U.S., we use Venmo, we use Cash App. But not to the extent they use it out there. Like the first real successful implementation of mobile money was in Kenya, and it's something that everybody uses. It's something that it's actually, that's from like 2008, like way back then. People were using money to text message to each other, and it's still considered the most successful implementation of mobile money. Like these are we've always had financial infrastructure in the U.S. You had bank accounts, you have credit cards, etc. These are individuals that didn't even have that, but they were able to transact digitally using their phones.
I'm sorry to cut you off, but I saw it on 60 Minutes. It was crazy because they were saying that, like, how successful it was, and they were saying, like, especially in a lot of the rural parts, they can't get to a bank. Even if there is a bank, they can't get to it physically. So, like, I forgot how much, but a large part of the population was unbanked. They didn't have bank accounts, never had bank accounts.
Right.
So now the mobile thing, but everybody has a cell phone. Even if it's like a cheap cell phone, but they have a cell phone. Yeah. So it made life tremendously easier when they developed that program, because now everybody uses that because it's so easy and you don't have to use the bank. I think the guy's like a billionaire who developed that.
Yeah. He was part of that, but also it came together with a marriage between basically Safaricom, which is like their Verizon, like their major cell phone provider, and Equity Bank, which is their major bank. So it was as if, if I was to use a parallel in the U.S., it's as if Verizon and J.P. Morgan Chase came together and got along, and they created this huge digital thing. Yeah. In a way, and because it was an emerging market and had less infrastructure, you had fewer players, you had fewer regulatory hurdles, and it just came together seamlessly and took over.
That's dope, man. That's powerful,
That's
man.
amazing.
So what's your overall outlook on the continent? I know you've been there a lot, and your family, half your wife is from Kenya as well, and you worked in the NBA and stuff like that on Africa. You optimistic?
I'm optimistic. I think similar to like crypto, like, tread carefully. Like, for instance, if the people, like, from when I initially worked in Africa to now, a lot of those currencies are down like 50%. Right. So they've there was a time in, I would say, the early 2010s, so like 2010 to 2014, where all those currencies were booming. There was so much investment happening, but there've been a lot of like political unrest. The economies have not taken off to the level that people thought, and so there's been a bit of a pullback. That being said, that's a good opportunity to put money in. I just want to put all my money in. And also I would make sure that, I think it's very important for you to understand the local market, right? So like, for instance, like you build an app out here in the US, I'm building an iPhone first, because over there, Android is king, right? You got to know what people are going through. You have to know that, one struggle we had is like, all right, well, we want people to stream movies or watch games on their cell phone. In the US, my T-Mobile data plan is unlimited. Over there, people are prepaid, and the infrastructure is not even that strong. So, like, streaming those megabytes and to even watch a game, like, you could kill somebody's whole monthly allotment of data.
They watch one game and it's over for the month.
Right? So they're more likely to wait until they could get to Wi-Fi to download something, whereas we here don't care, right? So you have to make sure, if you were to build a product for them, you have to take those things into account.
No, that's dope.
That's a gem.
Yeah, man. Thank you for that information, man. We appreciate it. And we're going to try, this is actually something that we want to try to do for every continent. So we'll have, like, this was an Africa edition. We'll have a Europe edition. We'll have a South America edition.
Or even different countries.
Caribbean edition. Yeah, even different countries, because I feel like it's important, to acknowledge that the people all over the world. And it's also important, once again, for Americans. The vast majority of our listeners are Americans, but you got to expand your mind. You got to see the world for what it is. You got to see bigger than just your neighborhood and your city. It's tough. A lot of times we get so bogged down in our day-to-day life that we don't see past our 10-mile radius or even 2-mile radius. It's like we just worry about where we're at, but the world moves quick. Yeah. And business is done all over the world, and just people, it's good to experience different cultures and know what's going on outside of your neighborhood. So if we could be that window of the world and bring people that are knowledgeable about, different areas in the world, and actually travel to those places as well. That's one thing we're going to do. We're on tour right now, hitting different cities in America. But we're gonna go overseas as well.
Yeah.
We're gonna go to these places and actually talk to people in those actual countries as well.
Hopefully, we can bring some alumni with us.
Yeah, no,
So you alumni now.
Yo,
Yeah, for sure. So once again, if you got any opportunities, speaking engagements, feel free to hit us up. Email us is the best, but DM us. We open to traveling domestically and internationally. We're going to be on a college tour this fall. We're going to hit a couple of colleges. We'll be announcing that pretty soon. So, we're going to try to spread the word of financial literacy and education all over the world, every language, every population. As I said, it's not something that's just limited to one community. It's for every community, world, mankind. That's the kind of vision that we're looking at all over the world. So once again, thank you. Can you tell the people your information, how to reach you?
Yeah, no, thank you for having me. This is fun. You can find me on Twitter, as well as IG. It's Fritz Chain, so FritzChain. My name Fritz Charles on LinkedIn. You can add me, and that's it. Yeah, I'm always my DM's open. I'm always willing to chat with people, learn from people.
And what's your podcast too?
It's called Coin Gamma.
Gamma.
Yeah, we talk about crypto blockchain.
48 episodes in?
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. We talk about crypto blockchain. We interview some of the biggest leaders in the space. Just talk about the different trends. There's always something new going on. Right now it's about Facebook. So next week it'll be about something different.
Oh, you're talking about Libra?
Yeah, Libra. Yeah. So check me out, and definitely appreciate your time, fellas.
Yeah, support that.
Nah. Thank you for coming, Troy.
Yeah,
Patreon community.
Yeah, our Patreon community, it always grows. So thank you to everybody that's been supporting. That's our Proud to Pay program. Again, rest in peace to Nip. I want to give a big shout out to Brenda. She's one of our patrons from California. She's trying to link the dots so we can come out to Oakland. So shout out to Brenda and everybody that's joined. Like I said, you can join at any tier. There's 5 of them. But the more you support that, the more we're going to be able to do things like travel internationally and domestically. So continue to support that. We got some new merch. If you was on Instagram, you saw the EYL University. That's coming soon. So be on the lookout for that. And some more other things that we're gonna put on the website as well. Yeah, actually, the website we about to redesign.
Yeah, about to redesign the website. Yeah. Digital Brands with a Z. Shout out to them.
Yeah,
for sure. And the merch, yes, don't forget the merch. The merch is another way to support the podcast. So we have merch up right now, earnyourleisure.com. We're putting new merch up. And we make statements with our clothes, and we complain a lot about designers that are openly racist, and we still wear the clothes. So It's like, why not wear something that is it says something, like all of our clothes say something that is financially related, and also it's from the culture. So that's a way to support. And then we're on tour, as I mentioned previously. We hit LA was the first stop. We're doing like these network meet and greets. LA was the first stop. It was crazy. And then we did Brooklyn. Brooklyn was really crazy. And then Atlanta was even more crazy. So we're just going to keep the momentum going. I think the next stop that we're going to do is Houston.
H-Town.
Shout out to H-Town. So H-Town, man, we need y'all to show your love. We're going to announce that soon.
Yeah, we try to make it to the ranch, y'all. So y'all got to help us get there.
Yeah. Jay Prince, what's up, man? Lil Kiki, what's up? Don Key, that's my guy. We got a lot of good people that we connected with in Houston. So I've never been to Texas, so I'm looking forward to going to Houston for sure. And then we'll probably do DMV, Philly too. But if you want us to come to your city, I know Chicago, we're kind of on the cusp with that. A lot of people have been hitting us about Chicago, but let us know where we need to go. And the purpose of these networking events is just to bring people together and to meet new people and meet some of the EYL alumni, but more importantly, meet people in your city, exchange information, discuss business ideas. You never know who your next business partner might be. You never know who you can make money with, buy a home with, do different things of that nature. So relationships are very important. A lot of times we don't fully understand that. So that's the whole point of these network meet and greets that we're doing. And my book tip of the week is Howard French is the author, and the name of the book is China's Second Continent. It's about China's influence in Africa, fitting since we've talked about that. So that's a good book. Highly suggest it, recommend it. So yes, thank you guys for rocking with us, and we will see you next week. Peace.
Peace.